Well, I made it. And I forgot to say this in my promotion for this, but I'm also premiering Halloween a costume. So, give me a second. Let me get everything ready. Don't mind the slight, if there's some white noise in the background, it's because there's a fan on, because it's a little bit hot down here with the furnace running. But, oh, don't you start. And my cactus is joining me for this one in the background. But, let's head over to the library first. Hey, look at me. I got a whole new look. So let's show this off before we get into the reviews. Whoop, that's not the one I wanted. I want this. There we go. We're gonna shrink this down a bit so y'all can take a look at what my lovely art parent has given me. They go by the name The Melty Peach. Let me go get their info and post it in chat. They're a non-binary artist that I know personally, and I love their stuff. Come on. Did I not? Copy. Paste. Well, OBS is being a pain. There we go. Nice and centered in the middle of the screen. If you couldn't tell, the look I'm going for is Sweet Tooth, a comic that I've read, but that I have not seen, but a show that I have not seen. I still need to see the Netflix show. I'm still behind on the Netflix movies, but I am going as Sweet Tooth for Halloween. And so, I don't think his name is Sweet Tooth. What's his actual name? Gus. I'm going as Gus from Sweet Tooth, and I just love the look for him. And he's a prominent deer boy in popular culture. So for the month of October, I will be Gus, and I'll be sure to show off the costume at the beginning of the streams in case there are newcomers coming in and want to see more. But for the time being, let me double check the OBS levels. It's a bit high. Let's bring this all down a bit. There we go. In any case, it's Monday, and that means we're about to review some movies. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to see a whole lot. So with what I was able to see, let's head on over to the movie room. Or the theater, as it's supposedly called. Yeah, let's move ourselves a little bit into the corner here. And not in the way of the posters. But yeah, I got to see some movies this weekend. And I wasn't able to do much catching up. Because last week I was able to see a whole bunch of stuff on like Paramount Plus and Apple TV and all sort, HBO Max. But this past week I was a lot busier, and I'm about to hopefully have a day job again, which means I can bring in some money to see more movies. But I was able to see the big release this weekend, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. There we go. I want to make sure everything's kosher. There we go. And it should pop up now. The chat should pop up on the chat window. I'm still finagling with OBS. Why are you like this? Come on. Well. I won't worry about it. I'll finagle with that another stream. As long as I can keep an eye on the chat on the side. It's always been giving me problems. I don't know what the deal is. In any case, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Now, the first Venom movie I actually was not a fan of. I know that it does have its fans, but I personally found it to be tedious, honestly. I thought it was it felt kind of like how Venom came off in the 90s, very edgy, very, shut up, Mom, it's not a phase. But this took itself a lot less seriously. I think that's the thing, is that I always had a problem with Venom being a solo hero because he is so tied into Spider-Man's mythos, and his character origins are directly tied to Spider-Man. That the idea that you would just cut Spider-Man out of the equation, it seems so... It would be like having Bizarro without Superman being there. Like having a solo Bizarro movie. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I got popcorn kernel, like, right there in my tooth, and it's driving me crazy. But yeah, this time around, it's a lot more comedic. We've got Andy Serkis, best known for portraying Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and Caesar in the recent Planet of the Apes movies. And he has since... God, there's another one. It was right there. And digging right into the side of my gum. But Serkis has since started to move behind the scenes and direct more. He started with some movie about Iron Lungs, I believe. I forget what it was called. It was a biopic. It was a biopic period drama about somebody who... There was some medical thing or another, but he followed that up with the Jungle Book movie that came out right about the same time as Disney's remake. Only his was like weirder and darker, and it was the one on Netflix. And he gave Baloo like a Cockney accent, where he sound cool, blimey, Mowgli. He played Baloo and he made Baloo into like a drill sergeant with a Cockney accent. You think you'll survive in the jungle with that, like that, man cub? It was really bizarre, and I didn't like it. But it was not terribly made, like, production-wise. And so, hearing him taking on Venom was a weird choice to me. I wasn't sure what to think about that, because I don't know that anybody could save Venom by itself, because I didn't think this whole thing was salvageable, because it's Sony trying to do Spider-Man without Spider-Man. And they've been trying to push that. They're still trying to push Morbius, the living vampire, on us. But when I watched the film, I had a good time. It didn't take itself too seriously. The jokes could be hit or miss, but at least there was more hit than miss. And the premise here, it takes the lead off from the post-credits scene of the first movie that introduced Cletus Cassidy as Carnage, that introduced Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. And so, following that, Eddie Brock had written a piece about Cletus Cassidy, which has started to get his career back a little bit stabilized. Meanwhile, he and Venom are full-on romantic comedy odd couple, and Venom is like an id to, it's like Eddie playing like this id personality that wants to do the impulsive things immediately, whereas Brock has to try and be more reasonable and more rational and responsible. And he is getting tired because Venom requires a certain chemical that only appears in chocolate and in human brains. And he's been surviving on chocolate and chickens, apparently, except for two that they named Sonny and Cher, because silly gag. He named the chick. He named the two chickens. He can't eat those. That's Sonny and Cher. After meeting with Cassidy again, Cassidy's trying to they give some backstory to Cletus Cassidy in this weird scene where Woody Harrelson is doing the voiceover, but it's like a teenage kid, so it's a teenage kid with Woody Harrelson's voice, and it's really off-putting. I don't know why they made that choice, but it shows that Cletus in this home, basically this orphanage, this home for troubled kids, what is essentially a teenage insane asylum, and his only companion is some character, is a black woman named Shriek, and it turns out Shriek is actually is a mutant character. I don't know, they don't say mutant here, so I guess that's how they get away with it. But Shriek has sonic-based powers, like screaming, shouting. Think Black Canary from the DC comics, or Melina? Is it Melina or is it Katana? One of the characters from Mortal Kombat has that same power, where it's high-pitched sonic attack. And so Shriek is about to be taken away, and during the transport, which they mentioned to her that they know she has mutant powers, yet they give her a standard transport. There's weird. This is like 2000s era kind of dumb comic book movie logic, so there's plot holes abound in this story, and things happen for convenience's sake. But in any case, Shriek supposedly gets away, but the cop who shot her thinks that she's dead, Mulligan, who we'll get to later. But sorry if that was too loud. But it cuts then to the present day. Brock and Venom are dealing with the aftermath of the first movie, while Cletus is trying to get Brock to deliver a message through the newspapers to Shriek, who he still believes was alive. Who he believes was alive. You know, as much as he thought she was dead, that he wanted to hold out hope that she was still alive. And so he has that Brock print out this whole this little two-line poem to show Shriek that he still believes she's alive if she's out there. And while there, Venom is able to determine, based on memorizing like I said, plot holes abound. But by memorizing the scratches on Cletus's cell wall, is able to determine by himself that where the remaining bodies are that Cletus had buried. And he does this personally, like he takes it directly to the FBI, which gets Mulligan mad because, this was supposed to be his case and his jurisdiction, and he went over Mulligan's head or something. It's stupid and not very well developed. But by breaking that story, by breaking the finding of the bodies, Brock is thrust right back into the spotlight. But his relationship with Venom is strained because he believes, because he's been so tired of Venom's shenanigans that even though Venom solved the case and wants to be this hero, he is determined to be this lethal protector. Brock is just tired and wants to be done, and then Anne, Michelle Williams from the last movie, his ex, reveals that Dan, her current boyfriend, has proposed to her. And Anne is aware that Venom is still kind of around, and she basically tells him to take care of Eddie because he is in such bad shape. And then after they fight, they go. Cletus is given the death penalty because of public demand. The governor has sought an agreement. This is based in San Francisco, so it's in California. So the governor has sought an exception to the case to give Cletus Cassidy the death penalty, given the nature of the murders and the amount of bodies that they found. Apparently, like I said, I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. It's just trying to make the story work that was written before California got rid of the death penalty. But because Brock found the bodies, Cletus is pissed, and he invites Eddie to come give some final words to him before his execution. And during that meeting, Cletus insults Anne, I believe, and threatens her. And that leads to Brock and Venom striking back at Cletus. And during the fight, Cletus bites Eddie's, I don't know what that little pit is called between your thumb and your index finger, but he bites that little bit. And then that's where we get the line where, "I've tasted blood before. That ain't blood. What are you hiding, Eddie?" That whole bit where Cletus realizes that Eddie's hiding something. And that's how Carnage comes to be. Which is honestly which honestly kind of works better than how it did in the comics, in which symbiotes can get to a point where they are quote unquote pregnant, and if they leave a little bit of themselves behind and it comes into contact with someone, they form a new symbiote. And at the current time in Carnage's case, the Venom symbiote was pregnant while Brock was in prison. The Venom symbiote helps Eddie Brock break out of prison. During the breakout, a piece of the Venom symbiote is left behind, and it attaches to Cletus Cassidy, who was Brock's cellmate, and it attaches to Cletus through an open wound, which leads to the blood form of Carnage, which, as opposed to the black symbiote forms we usually see. And apparently red symbiotes are more powerful. I don't know much about the symbiote lore. There's so much lore behind the symbiotes, and it's all nonsense anyway. But Cletus gets the symbiote powers through that bite, and during his execution, the symbiote activates and protects Cletus and helps him break out of prison. Even attacks a really cool sequence where Carnage goes through the prison, killing all the guards and even going after the warden before finally breaking out. And while that's going on, Venom and Eddie have another fight because of what happened. And they finally and Eddie finally gets to the point where he tells Venom off and says, "You would be nothing without me. You need me," that sort of thing. And then Venom decides to get the hell out and be done. And it's a full-on lover spat in which Venom breaks all of Eddie's things, including a Ducati that he was riding throughout the first act. And that's kind of where we get into one of the more infamous scenes, where infamous in that, it came right the hell out of nowhere. But Venom goes to during that part, while Venom is living without Eddie and is basically living off host after host, he goes to a rave and gets a bunch of glow sticks and glow hoops on him, and then he hangs out with a bunch of ravers, and then gives this whole speech about coming out of the Eddie closet. And it's supposed we're really leaning into the gay iconography here. We're just this is going from subtext to text. We are full on acknowledging Eddie and Venom are more like a gay relationship than anything else. But during that time, Brock realizes that Cletus has escaped, and he tries to search more into Cletus's backstory, and that's where he finds out about Frances, whatever her name is, the Shriek character, and then Cletus breaks Shriek out of Ravensloft, whatever they call it, the Arkham Asylum for the Marvel Universe that's tied to Spider-Man's characters only, apparently. And after they break out, they have a little hint that Shriek's sonic abilities drive a wedge between Carnage and Cletus, and that's going to become a big point of tension towards the climax. But it's never really well developed, and after the two of them escape, they plan a wedding in which Shriek wants Mulligan, the cop who shot her in the eye, and Cletus wants Eddie, and Carnage wants Venom, his dad. And they only acknowledge it once in the movie, but yeah, Carnage is considered Venom's son. In terms of that. But while that's going on, Venom's getting weaker and weaker as the hosts keep dying on him, and Eddie gets arrested by Mulligan for all of the points of, all these suspicious things that has been going on around Eddie, hinting to the last movie. And then Anne helps him out by reuniting Venom and Eddie, and then that leads us into the climax at a church. And I will say the climax is fun. The Carnage and Venom fight is good, and then there's some really good moments during the course of it. I will say it kind of sucks that Shriek and Anne weren't better utilized. I feel like they could have done more with those characters than what they did, especially since I really dug... I mean, everyone's saying it. It's basically natural-born killers between Cletus and Shriek. And so I would have liked more development for that, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And she's sadly underutilized for most of the movie, especially during the final fight, where you'd think that would be, a bigger deal, that this mutant with Sonic-based powers is actually, is trying to fight and, going against the symbiotes, but doesn't really go anywhere. And then after the fight, the movie ends, and we get a teaser for during the mid-credits that I won't spoil. And I gotta say that I had more fun. This is a stupid movie, but it's a dumb kind of fun. It's a kind of fun that we don't all get all the time. It's a very B grade movie. It's a B movie. It's a B horror movie with a lot of gay overtones. And you know what? I'm here for that. I'm fine with that. And at least I had fun with it. Like, if you're not going to give me amazing, at least give me fun. And I do want to do depending on how much I get to see between now and next week, I want to try and come up with a graph I've been wanting to do, which is the entertainment. It's basically like the political spectrum graph, the quadrant, and it's entertainment versus quality, production quality. Basically, how well a movie is made versus how much fun it is to watch. And I wanted to do that back when I did video reviews, and I might as well do it now, because it's been on my mind a lot, and it keeps coming up, and I want to talk about it, so I might as well finally plot out the quadrants, put in some examples, and then talk about what it is, so that people can see that and decide how much it if they think it's a worthwhile idea or not. I mean, if nothing else, if I can contribute that to film review discussion, if that's my legacy, then I'm okay with it. I kind of did, that I would like, that would be something at least. But it's been on my mind a lot, and I want to talk about it at some point. So I'm gonna try and plot out the quadrants and see if I can't come up with something. But yeah, Venom was fun. Venom was a dumb kind of fun. Carnage is sadly underdeveloped. They didn't do a whole lot. They show some scenes of Carnage talking with Cletus, but for the most part, it's mostly Cletus, and it's mostly just Cletus. And Woody Harrelson is good. I mean, Woody Harrelson very rarely sucks in a movie. And Tom Hardy is having a blast as both Eddie Brock and Venom. He does the Venom voice with some modulation, I'm guessing. And he apparently took more involvement in the story writing process and coming up with the story. And I feel like his version of Venom is at least fun this time around. He's having more fun this time. And apparently, like, the lobster scene from the first Venom movie was Tom Hardy's idea. So him taking Venom and making him more of a comedic character, a comedic, anti-hero villain character, is at least something. But I'd have to see what they do after this, because they also tease something in the fight. Because basically the Mulligan character ties into another symbiote character, so that's going to be in the next Venom movie is going to tie into more symbiotes. Basically, we're just going to keep getting more and more of the symbiote characters popping in throughout this movie. But yeah, Carnage was fun. Let There Be Carnage was fun, and I preferred it to the first movie because at least it's dumb. Even though it's dumb as hell, I had way more fun with coming out of the Eddie closet and the natural born killers stuff between Shriek and Cletus. And even the fight scenes, though they do kind of do the quick cutting that I hate in action movies, and that's mainly apparently to keep it PG-13. But even for PG-13, the kills are fairly solid. There's a good chunk where you see Carnage's tongue stick through a guy's mouth in order to get to the brain. So there's a couple of cool kills in this movie, even though it's PG-13. What would be really interesting is that if Circus, I haven't heard anything about this, but if Circus is able to do an unrated cut, that would be something. Once again, I have no idea if that's even a possibility based on what he filmed. But yeah, Let There Be Carnage was a lot more fun than it had any right to be. But it's still just dumb as a brick. Next movie I saw was the big prequel to come out through HBO and Warner. And that is The Many Saints of Newark, a Sopranos story. Now, I'd never seen The Sopranos. It premiered back in 98, 99, and I was 10, 11 years old when the series started coming out. So this was clearly well out of my demographic. But I know of the series, and I've seen references to the series. I know about Tony Soprano. I know that it's a mob story. So there's a lot of the same things you see in other mob stories, like Goodfellas, like The Godfather. A lot of those same dramas appear throughout the story of Tony Soprano. I knew that. I tried watching the series. I thought I could binge through the series in a week, even though that would be like 86 hours straight. So 86 hours, that'd be 3 days straight if I did nothing but watch The Sopranos. So yeah, there was no way in hell I was finishing the series before this movie. But I think the saddest part is that I only got through episode 7 before I had to stop and try to focus on some other stuff. And yeah, I think The Sopranos is something I'm going to have to put on the back burner and come back to see if I like. I wasn't getting into it a whole lot. I think James Gandolfini is good. I think Edie Falco is great. I think Tony's mom is a raging asshole. Is a piece of absolute garbage, petty piece of shit. But I wasn't able to get fully into the series. As for the movie, you don't really need to see the show to get the movie. There's not a whole lot in this prequel that you would be lost on if you didn't see the show. In fact, one of the scenes from the movie is basically a remake of a scene from the first season in which Tony watches his dad get arrested for selling stolen furs or something like that through a carnival, and his sister was tied in it somehow. They remake that scene in this movie with his dad being played by John Bernthal, aka the Punisher. And this time around, we've got an interesting cast lineup. The movie stars a name I had not heard in almost full on 2 decades since I last saw this guy's name tied to a movie. Alessandro Nivolo, who I last saw in Jurassic Park 3. in 2001. So he plays, I'm not going to remember names. I think Dickie is his name. I don't remember the names, man. But, yeah, Dickie Moltisanti, who is part of the DeMeo crime family and is friends with Johnny Soprano, Tony's dad, and by association becomes like a father figure, an inspirational figure to Tony, little Tony, who here as a teenager is played by James Gandolfini's actual son, Michael. And that was the big press behind this movie. Oh, we've got Michael Gandolfini playing Tony Soprano as a tribute to his dad. And it's like, okay then. That's something. Doesn't mean he's going to be good in it, but at least that's a selling point, I guess. This takes place during a point in Newark's history where this is the 60s, so there was, much more racial tensions going on. I don't know how it is now. I know things hadn't gotten much better politically because there was a whole movie I watched featuring Cory Booker about Newark and political corruption. But they do feature there is a subplot featuring Leslie Odom Jr. here as a black man who is trying to get into form his own criminal organization alongside the dramas of the DeMeo family. And so the main focus here is on Dickie Moltisanti and how he finds out his dad is abusing his brand new Italian wife, and so ends up taking out his dad and taking on the Italian woman as his guma, that whole thing, and got Ray Liotta as his dad and playing double duty as the dad's twin brother who's in prison for mob stuff. While it's going on, you get to see Vera Farmiga as Livia Soprano. John Bernthal is Giovanni Soprano. And Corey Stoll is Junior Soprano, the old guy that Tony deals with in the first season. And it's an interesting cast list. You've got a really solid cast here. Leslie Odom Jr., John Bernthal, Vera Farmiga, even Alessandro Nivola is a really solid actor in his own right, even though I've only seen him in one movie. I'd never say, well, he wasn't bad in it. I can at least say that. Was there somebody else? Ray Liotta. Oh, yeah, Ray Liotta, of course. Yeah, so, you've got a really solid cast in here. And you know what? Michael Gandolfini has potential. He has real solid potential. They don't give him a whole lot to do as Tony, but you can tell Michael he's like a raw ore that can easily be molded into an actor that's as good as his dad was. Even though James Gandolfini kind of got stuck in the one-note character piece of the mobster thanks to the success of The Sopranos, he was still a solid actor outside of those kinds of roles. Like there's a role he played where he was like the dad or the father figure to like a neighbor kid or something. It was right before his untimely death, and I think it was with Gina Davis or Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it's a really cute sort of dramedy, and he really shines as an actor, and it's really sad that we lost him so soon because he was so very clearly capable of so much more than just being pastiches of Tony Soprano. But Michael has a lot of potential here. He could easily be he taps into the Tony role. He's able to capture the bits of Tony that we saw from the show as a young kid and build into that. And he has the potential, if he can get some good roles, he could easily become a good actor in his own right. And it's going to be interesting to see what he follows this up with. If he can get some really solid roles, that he could easily become the next It kid. But yeah, I find it interesting that Michael Gandolfini kind of looks like Haley Joel Osment. Let me pull up a couple of pictures of them, because this totally bugs me now that from the minute I saw it. Let's pull up Michael Gandolfini and Haley Joel Osment. And I'm talking about like current Haley Joel Osment, present day Haley Joel Osment. So let me get a good picture of Michael Gandolfini here. Here's we'll use this picture for Mike and this picture for Haley. Come on. Ah, damn it. I have to find a better picture for Haley because that one's being a pain. What about this one? You know, I just wish, instead of going to the source, it would just give me a bigger image of the thing I'm looking for. Google Image is a pain in the ass. Open image. Here we go. Let's do this. Okay. So, we can do a quick cut over to the browser. We're going to add a new browser source. And we're going to cut and paste these images. So that there is Michael Gandolfini. And we're going to add one more. And this is going to be the Haley Joel Osment. This is Haley Joel Osment currently. You see what I'm getting at here? There's like a similar something. I think the featheriness of Michael's hair is what's making me think of Haley Joel Osment. I think that the similar facial features, similar that feathery hairstyle. But yeah, it was definitely threw me off for a second. Like, wow, Michael Gandolfini in this looks kind of like an older Haley Joel Osment, like 20s Haley Joel Osment. This movie, it does dig into a lot of Sopranos lore. So if you were a fan of this series, I don't know how much you're gonna like this. Like, if this, because this doesn't really go into a lot of the unanswered stuff from the show. Because like the biggest thing about the show was that it ended on a unsatisfying conclusion. I think that was the big thing. I don't think people were as concerned about young Tony Soprano and the early days of the DeMeo family in the 60s. Like, it's an interesting idea, but I don't think they really needed this story as much. I think people would be more interested in present day, future Soprano stories rather than just looking back at young Tony. I think this is. I'm not sure behind this. I mean, I will say it's good that they included a more diverse cast and allowed for that black character subplot. In fact, it's kind of more interesting than what happens to the DeMeo family. I feel like what happens with The Sopranos, the characters we know from The Sopranos, is not very interesting. It's just kind of generic mob stuff. Whereas what's happening with Leslie Odom Jr. and with the black characters in Newark, that's actually interesting. Like that's a story we haven't heard of, like a black character, a black character trying. I think there's American Gangster covered an actual black mobster, the one with Denzel Washington from a decade or so back. But we haven't really seen many mob movies featuring black characters. I mean, even treating like like actual gangs, like the Crips, Bloods, those kinds of gangs as mobsters. We haven't seen stories like that outside of, I think, lower budget B-grade stuff. So we haven't really seen any serious takes on black gang or black criminal lifestyle that much. At least not from like mainstream Hollywood productions. But yeah, it really, I think this is a thing where the production value and the cast is all fine. It's all solid across the board. But the writing just isn't there. It just, like, there is no reason, even if you're a Sopranos fan, I couldn't see you watching this over the likes of something like Goodfellas, like The Godfather, like the Dante Brasco even. I haven't seen that one, but Heat. Actually really excellent mob and crime movies have these things that this movie does not. This just kind of follows the formula, and the only thing really going for it is that it's cool to see John Bernthal play Johnny Soprano. It's interesting to see Michael Gandolfini take up his father's old role. It's nice. Vera Farmiga does a good job as a young Livia. And Corey Stoll is cool as a young Junior. He really kind of encapsulates that role for when he's on screen. Ray Liotta is always a delight, They're outside of that stuff. Like, there's a really interesting scene where Leslie Odom Jr.'s character meets up with Dickie Moltisanto in a club, and some guy there is giving him shit, and he calls him out on it, like some actual racist stuff. Like he makes a reference to picking cotton in the to Leslie Odom Jr. and Leslie Odom Jr. Comes back at him with something, and I forget what. What was his comeback? It was a really solid one. It was a really solid burn. But basically coming back with, now we're tougher than you guys. Now we're better than you guys. It was something along those. It was a nice comeback to that sort of demeaning comment from this asshole mafioso, and it got to the point where Dickie took him aside, and the other guys were ready to shoot Leslie Odom Jr.'s character on the spot for talking back to them. But, I feel like that scene encapsulates a movie we missed out on, which is, we could have had a story of this black guy trying to break into the world of crime while the DeMeo family has their hands around the city of Newark. And how does one do that? But this movie, and the guy, I forget his name, the guy who created the original show, he's more concerned with tapping into the nostalgia of The Sopranos, which is well over a decade since it finally since the show ended, and he's hoping to tie into some nostalgia for the show instead of telling a more interesting story, which is there in the subplot but not there in the main plot, and it just kind of meanders for the most part. And John Bernthal's not in a whole lot of scenes, but he does good as Johnny Soprano in them. Vera Farmiga's not in a whole lot of scenes, but she's good as Livia. But it just feels, it doesn't feel like there was a real point to it other than remember The Sopranos. And we got HBO Max. in the same place I can watch this movie right now, I could go watch the original Sopranos series and remember the Sopranos. Just, yeah, it's not terrible. It doesn't feel like there's a reason for this to exist other than to try and keep the Sopranos IP going. Like, the whole A Sopranos story feels like one of those things where, there was another franchise that pulled this, I forget, what was it? There's a bunch of franchises that tried to pull this, where it's an X story, so it's like, this is set within this franchise's universe, so that you know that this is set in this franchise's universe. And, yeah, I'm not into it. So, yeah. The last thing I saw, though, was an old Netflix movie. Old as in from, like, May. And I unfortunately missed it when it first came out. It was the first of the Netflix movies that I missed. Because I was keeping up with Netflix fairly easily when I was doing the video reviews. And at about May is when I fell off the wagon. The movie is Stowaway. And it's got a great cast. Once again, I think this suffers a lot from the same issues as the Many Saints of Newark. Because it has a great cast. It's got killer production value. But I don't see a reason for this movie to exist. Like, what do you get from Stowaway that wasn't done better in Gravity? Or even Interstellar. Like, I didn't like Interstellar, but at least Interstellar did more than what we got here. But yeah, Stowaway deals with a team of scientists heading up to take off to Mars. And after takeoff, despite apparently doing all the checks or whatever, somehow there was a stowaway on board, which was, I guess, some maintenance crew member who got caught, and it turns out damaged parts of the ship. So now the ship is not at full capacity. And that means, and the big drama is that they've only planned out enough supplies to keep 3 of them alive on the way to Mars. And so at some point, somebody's going to have to die. And the eyes are on the stowaway to die, except for Anna Kendrick, who wants to try and find a way to keep everybody alive if she can. And she gets to know this guy, hears his story, hears what happened to him, and is more determined to keep him alive in order for him to, I believe, return to family or something. But yeah, it's not a bad movie in the sense that it's like got terrible message or it's got terrible dialogue or anything like that. It's just kind of boring. Like, all of the drama doesn't have any real weight to it, which I guess is fitting since this takes place in space. But yeah, I felt nothing for these characters, and I didn't care that this one dude was gonna die. It just didn't really matter to me. I didn't matter who anybody was gonna die. And like, even this big dramatic moment where Daniel Day Kim has to kill off his algae in order for there to be enough, when they get to, it's something about his algae thing, which is his life's work, is ruined because of this stowaway. And so now he's got a personal grudge for the stowaway. You know, he's got a personal interest in seeing the stowaway die. And I never, like, it just felt like it was there, but there was no weight behind these feelings, these themes, these ideas. And yeah, like, it just, everything, and like, even with Frances McDormand not Frances McDormand, Toni Collette. Toni Collette is I swear to God, did they put Frances McDormand and Toni Collette in the same movie so we can hopefully tell them apart? Same thing with Jessica Chastain and Bryce Dallas Howard. But yeah, Toni Collette plays the captain, and she's been in charge, and she's struggling to try and figure out what to do given these events. But even she can't really elevate this dialogue, which is just okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's no weight behind what's going on. It just, nothing ultimately matters. Even the ultimate scene where, where, like, it feels like it was it felt like it was really going for the Gravity sort of scenario of, like, everything that bad that can't happen in space is happening in space, and these astronauts are just doing their best to try and survive. And yet, I felt more for Sandra Bullock's character in Gravity than I did for any of the characters in this movie. And honestly, I think it's... I just think... Apparently, this is the same guy who did Arctic, that movie a couple years ago with Mads Mikkelsen. And he's apparently some former guitar YouTuber, Mystery Guitar Man, Mr. Guitar Man, something or another. Let me see. What's his name? His name is Joe Penna. Mystery Guitar Man. That was his big thing on YouTube, is he got famous for Mystery Guitar Man, and then he started making movies, apparently. Arctic was his feature-length debut. This is his second film. And this is just okay. Like, it's not poorly made. The effects are good. The acting is fine. It's all in the writing. This script is just languid and lifeless, and it's just... like, there's no real argument from either side. Like, there's no investment. It's just kind of blah. Like, there's no real passion behind what's going on. It just feels kind of cold and dead. Once again, very fitting for space, I guess. But yeah, Stowaway is very forgettable. It's not so forgettable that I would call it, like, blandest of the year or anything, which, started doing this thing back in, I believe, 2018. I picked it up from Yahtzee over at Zero Punctuation, who I believe picked it up from James Stephanie Sterling's son over at the Jimquisition. Apparently they did something similar way back when they actually used to review games, where they were commenting on a blandest list. And the idea is that you take the media that is the most banal, the most lifeless and useless, like the thing you gained the least from watching. Because it's one thing to absolutely hate a movie. It's one thing to absolutely love a movie. But to have a movie just leave you cold, like, to have the media leave no impact on you whatsoever. This came close, but for this year, the stuff I'm talking about are things like Peter Rabbit 2, Cry Macho, Locked Down. Like, these are things that came out that just, like, didn't leave a good impact on, didn't leave a positive impact on me, didn't leave a negative impact on me. It just left me feeling like that was time spent watching moving pictures, I guess. And yeah, this was something, I guess. I mean, it's not terrible. Like, you can watch it for the space scenes, I guess. At least that's something. That's more than I could say for a lot of the bland movies that I watched this year. But ultimately, Stowaway is kind of it's like the Stowaway in this movie, completely forgotten about until somebody pulled it out of their memory banks and was like, oh yeah, this happened. But yeah, otherwise, I don't see any reason to go back and dig through the Netflix archives to try and pull it back out. It was just free content for Netflix to put on their service, because that's all that matters to them, is pumping their service full of content. Anyway, that about does it for the movies. Coming up this week, we've got the latest Bond. That's the finale for Daniel Craig as James Bond. I don't know if I'll be able to get a chance to see it. It's supposed to be popular, so I'm guessing the theaters are going to be packed, and I'd rather hold off for a bit if that's the case. Because I at least saw Venom in a Friday morning theatrical release, And there were still like a dozen people that showed up till like 11 o'clock on a Friday morning to see Venom. So I can't imagine, how many people are going to come to show up and see Bond. But Bond's coming out. The latest Pokemon movie is finally getting a release through Netflix. What else coming out? Let me see. 2021 in American film. Let me see. October, we've got... There's a new Netflix movie called... Oh, no. Oh, no. Apparently, the latest God's Not Dead came out already. It's got Isaiah Washington. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Who's Isaiah? He's from Grey's Anatomy. What do I know him from? Crooklyn, Clockers, Romeo Must Die. Oh, buddy. He was on The 100. That's weird. Apparently he called somebody a homophobic slur while arguing with Patrick Dempsey. Weird. Not sure what that was about. Apparently that was on Grey's Anatomy. He does stuff through Fox Nation, which is a spinoff of Fox News, so that explains why he's in this movie now. Oy vey. But yeah, apparently Amazon's got a couple of Blumhouse releases this week as well. Bleecker Street's got something called Mass. Not sure if that's going to be in my area. And South of Heaven. Crime film featuring Jason Sudeikis and Evangeline Lilly. And then Netflix has a new horror movie called There's Someone Inside Your House. Well, new. I don't know if it was picked up from like another country or something. No, American release. In fact, it premiered at Fantastic Fest. They held Fantastic Fest last month? I can't believe they held Fantastic Fest. I didn't even hear about Fantastic Fest. I usually hear about Fantastic Fest. Oh, well. Oh, somebody put the wrong year. It was last year's Fantastic Fest. Apparently Sean Levy is producing and James Wan. Not that James Wan is exactly in my good graces with his last movie. But apparently it's... set place in Nebraska, like an old farmhouse. So, I'll see if I can get a watch of that. So yeah, that's going to be the big release this year. The big one is going to be No Time to Die, the final Craig Bond film. And Daniel Craig is already going full Robert Pattinson on Bond at this point. He's like does not give two shits about Bond. He thinks he's a piece of shit character. He's not wrong, but it's nice to see him. It's nice to see him just like fully give up all shits given. You know, it's like no more shits to give. I'm done. So that was it, folks. Those are the movies I saw this week. Hopefully, I'll get some more in next time. And if not, I will see about getting that quadrant whole thing filled out and give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about with that whole entertainment value versus production value sort of thing. So until then, I'll see y'all later and have a good night. Bye.